Well,
I know, you're
Yeah,
about to turn
right, yes.
70 if you haven't already, and it's just a little harder to keep up.
Well, not necessarily.
Change is different. You're coming north on this way, on the right, on the opposite. No sign up or nothing. And they have the real.
Yeah, they posted it on the city's page.
Yeah, I
I don't
heard
know. Is there a point of contact
No.
that Stacy needs to have for that stuff? Because they did reach out.
People were going down,
Is that where it
you know, having to
is?
make a U-turn to the block converter track.
Yeah.
But then the people didn't know coming in.
She's just, oh, yes.
She's out of the shop.
Yeah, and they're gonna do sunset.
If you can just watch for pop-ups, pop-ups.
That started already.
Okay.
Yeah, they closed it early. They closed it today.
They just couple people here.
I'm sorry. Chief's not coming.
Oh,
So we can skip that on the agenda.
okay. Welcome, everyone. Got a nice group here today. We have Traffic Safety Commission meeting, and all the members are here. We're still checking to see if Connie Fribley is going to join us virtually. So if she joins in, we'll allow her to communicate with us. Let's start off with oral or written communications. Approval of the minutes for January 8th, 2025. We didn't have a February meeting, so we're approving the previous minutes from January. Everyone would review and let me know what you feel.
Well, as usual, the minutes are very complete, and I would make a motion to approve them.
Thank you, Cindy.
I'll second.
Jason and Dylan tied for second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. Still no Connie yet, so we'll move on. Harrison Elementary crosswalk danger. Joel, you want to?
So we
Bring
received
us up to
a
date.
complaint from Harrison Elementary in reference to cars not paying attention to the adults trying to stop traffic and get kids safely across. They're provided with orange or bright vest and also a stop sign, and they're being ignored. Let's see if this will play. So you can see her walking on the north of the part of the screen up on the top, and she's out with her stop sign, and a minivan just goes right by her, which is in compliance of state law and extremely dangerous.
So she has a handheld stop sign, correct?
Yes. And this is a pole camera, so it's a little bit difficult.
It's a 25 zone through there.
So what we did was the school provided big cones up to help slow it down, to narrow it down, the lane down a little bit, so you can provide even more awareness to the situation that kids are crossing, and that might be kids in the cross zone.
We had a death there, 2 years ago? And so there's some concern
Longer than
there.
that.
Has it been longer than that?
2018, 19, yep, 19.
Getting
Has it been that long ago?
Yeah, yep.
So that has been a concern for several years. It's a 25-mile-an-hour zone. Dustin, is there anything that you can suggest? What have you done so far? You've had those
So,
cones out.
We did. The cones are out, and we also made sure the flashing speed limit sign got off, and the school sets that. So I got with the school, and they were able to set that, so it's a little bit more accurate to when the kids are walking. So hopefully that will help. We also increase patrol, and we've been putting the squad car there helping crossing the kids.
But that's not a permanent resolution.
Not a permanent fix. People just need to pay attention when they drive.
Were the signs flashing when that occurred, and was it only one vehicle, or was it multiple vehicles?
It was one vehicle on this time, but I believe they've had issues in the past, and maybe Mark or Tracy can speak to that. But this was not a unique situation.
And the signs were activated, or?
Yep. There's one on the south side, coming up the hill on Canterbury, and then there's right on the north side, I'm sorry, south side coming on off the roundabout.
And even
Yeah, Glad
if they
Street.
weren't, she's still in the middle of the intersection
Yep.
with the stop sign. It's still a violation.
Of course, of course.
My understanding is we weren't able to identify the driver.
Correct. Correct. He's got a question.
Yeah, anybody else here have anything? No? Yes, sir, if you'd step up to the mic and,
Nick Hout with the Village at Winona.
Okay.
Jefferson, I don't know if this is a little bit different because it's a four-way stop, but outside Jefferson School, they have a portable dolly that's battery operated with a red and blue light on it that they pull into the middle of the intersection every single day during the school hours when the kids are crossing. So I think it's like 8:30 to 9 or whatever that period is, and then they remove that, and then when they go back out in the afternoon, they put it back out. And that's in the middle of the intersection the entire time that the crossing guard is walking the kids back and forth across the street.
where do they store that?
I think they keep it at the school.
Yeah, it's at the school, and then
So
we
they walk
also.
it out, the crossing guard walks it out?
Yeah, it's like
every
on a
day?
dolly, like a handcart dolly, and it's battery operated, and they probably charge it every so often.
And Harrison has one, Harrison
Red
has
and blue
one
LED
too.
light.
Harrison what?
Harrison has one too,
Yeah, I thought so.
yeah, because we built it, so.
Back to Nick.
But in this case, she just had the stop sign stick rather
Right.
than something out there.
Right.
Do they use that at Harrison?
I can't confirm if they do.
I don't recall ever seeing it.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
I think the difference is that Jefferson, it's actually a stop sign right there, at the
Yes.
crosswalk,
Yeah,
highlights
true.
that. We can bring that out there to highlight more, but it's not an actual stop, it's gonna stop traffic to allow. So
Good point, yes.
Yeah.
The difference there is that there's an actual stop at Jefferson that'll support that.
Flashing red and blue gets your attention.
And plus Winona Lake Police, they sit right at the fire station all the time, so, and they usually pull that out, but we've had buses run through and they catch them too, so.
Yeah, it's really not feasible for the crossing guard to push that out every time she has to stop.
No, they leave it out there. They don't.
Yeah, but they have a stop sign.
Correct.
I do know during the village events that we have a couple crosswalks on Park Avenue, kind of in front of the Miller Sunset Pavilion. We leave ours up all day long, and there's no stop at all. It's just to draw people's attention that they need to slow down and to watch out for traffic.
Right.
So whether that's legal or not, that's what we do in Winona.
Well,
Does it seem to create any confusion with drivers as there people are slowing down or trying
The
to?
second they see the lights, they usually start to slow down.
well, that cart could be used that way in that it's out there with the red lights and as a warning when the crossing guard is there. That might help to serve as a warning for them. Other suggestions you might have?
I
Aaron?
was gonna share, I mean, only if it's bringing attention, you start, I think, looking at options like a mast arm that hangs out over the roadway with flashers and stuff. So I think there's several things, some of them might have different cost tiers, but there are ways to bring drivers' attention to the fact that something's going on there. And I happened to, before Nick spoke, I was yesterday morning, about 6:30 a.m. going through Winona Lake, because I was going to an event there, and I saw that, and I slowed down, and there was not another car in sight, but I slowed, or a child in sight for that matter, and it just draws you to kind of react that way, I thought.
And that's a 20-mile-an-hour zone through the area in Winona at Jefferson School. This is 25 and pretty wide open.
We've only had one incident out there on Harrison since we did all the upgrades and all the signage and everything. So I think that was the first one that we've had. So I don't know if it was because Husky Trail opened back up, and everybody was just, going through, because it was like, what, 2 days after Husky Trail opened up? That happened?
It was very,
Yeah, it was pretty quick, so.
he or she was probably worried that 200 off got closed again.
Yeah.
Okay, so now just to
Don't
clarify,
print that, Dave.
just to clarify in my mind, when that person goes out with the sign, people should stop.
Yes,
Okay.
that's like a police officer directing traffic. It's the
Okay.
same thing.
If you could reiterate that, Dave, that would be helpful. May I ask, sir, your name?
Nick Howe.
Nick
Oh,
Hout? Okay.
Hauk,
H-A-U-K.
Hauk, okay,
Village of Winona.
okay.
Okay.
I think just a point of matter, maybe pushing out a press release as just a reminder, as, the weather's changing and spring's coming and more people are out and active, that, to be vigilant in school zones for walking traffic, and just a simple reminder may help to begin with.
I believe we put something out on our Facebook, Captain Keller Kid, if that doesn't matter.
Yeah, we made a post about it.
And some Warsaw schools, so.
Obviously, it's something we want to keep our eye on,
Absolutely.
see if it's just an indication of something that might get worse. But, yeah, I think I agree with everybody's view so far.
Another option too, Grace College on Rooster Road has a plastic sign that has a flashing yellow light on it, and it says, cross traffic must stop when pedestrians are in crosswalk. So they have that on Rooster Road and out in front of the big LED Grace sign on Kings Highway. So that could be an option too. If you didn't want to run a blue light, you could get something like that. And they leave that up pretty much all year long unless there's bad weather, and then they take it down so the plows can, and then they put it back out the next morning after the plows go through. That could be an option.
And here again, it's something that maybe we consider later. But I just came back from Florida. Wanted to make sure everybody knew that again. And they've got at their crosswalks on A1A, which is very heavily traveled, crosswalks, and they've got the diamond along with the statement, people in the crosswalk, you must stop. And then they've got a little yellow bar of flashing lights that people, when they want to cross, they push a button and they flash for a certain amount of time. It's something that maybe we would want to look at later as well, if we can't get it under control. That would avoid the snow plows.
I was gonna hesitate because I'm speaking vague, but since you brought this up, and I can't remember which beach town it was in Florida, but along the same lines, they had the lights that flash like we have, but they also have on the ground, it would be like reflectors, like they put reflectors for the center line or the divider, but these flashed yellow as well.
I saw
and
some of those
it's
as well.
Extremely eye-catching.
Yes.
I was impressed. I can't think of which beach town that was, but it was a heavy foot traffic area, a lot of cars as well. And I mean, these were
They do have
pretty
those in
consistent
Daytona
through
shores
there.
as well.
Yeah, and basically, I mean, and they didn't flash long because I could see all the way down the road, and whatever that would have been, 30 seconds, 45 seconds that was flashing, then they go back off. But extremely eye-catching because it was the vision you've got is the entirety of that street as you're coming up on that. So not only the sides but along the ground. So
is that like a lip? Like it goes up a little bit?
yeah, the best way I can say it, you kind of feel a little bit of a rumble when you drive over it. Yeah, but it was
They look like those reflectors that are put in as lane separators as you go down the highway,
That's the best way to say
except
it.
for they go across the crosswalk.
It's not bad.
But I just don't have, obviously I don't have any information on that. I don't know what cost would be for that, but I will say it was extremely eye-catching
Yeah.
How are those activated
by button.
by button?
So a pedestrian would walk up, they'd hit that button, it would activate for however that was set for. I want to say, if I was going to guess, maybe 45 seconds, and then enough time for somebody to pass through there, and then they kick back off.
Okay. You had an officer out there during that time. Did you hear of speeds and things that were going through there?
Yes, speeds, and then also making sure to be seen, being visible so that they know that we're out there paying attention.
Okay.
This is a singular event, though, at the
I
moment,
thought it
correct?
happened multiple times, but apparently Mark said it was just a singular event.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah.
Well, I apologize.
You're fine.
I can tell you that our Facebook page, we get messages on and off, same issues, that they say that they see it, so.
So it's just the first time
it's
we've
not- I
seen
wouldn't
it.
say this was just one
Right.
time,
This
but
is
we've
the first
had
time we're
other
tracking
complaints
it,
about
yeah.
But this one, we were able to actually go back
Yeah.
and pull that video.
Okay.
And the crossing guard is the same person all the time?
No.
Okay, that
It
changes.
rotates.
Okay.
Right, because we have a walking bus that walks from Canterbury. Walking buses where they collect up all the students that have to walk from Canterbury to Harrison, and then in the afternoons they go back. So, and then there's a crosswalker at that location. So the teacher walks them down and gathers them all up, walks them down to the crosswalk, and then they go across. But you have other students coming from Cooter Estates and back in the other areas back there. So, and there is a switch there that they have to hit to cross too. So it's active, you know, you have to hit it to activate it. So, and we haven't heard anything else about any cars going through, so. And there's usually a police presence there anyway, every morning.
We try.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
that's a priority for us, for
Yeah.
our patrol, is that we have somebody there in the mornings and the afternoons. Obviously, call volume is gonna dictate that, and if guys have to go take a call, then that's where it gets detracted from. But short of that, if there's no calls, we typically try to have people in those areas daily.
Is there a consensus then that we allow or look into something like that, but in the meantime, have police presence out there as much as we can?
That's gonna continue on our part. As much as we can, we attempt to have officers in that area. But I'll say that to you today, and then there'll be an accident and they can't be there today, you know, so.
Sure.
That's the difficulty with that.
Because Tracy, I don't think there's any more precautions we can really like take as far as, you know, the amount of traffic. I mean, we've pulled the numbers on it numerous times of all the traffic that goes through there. And I even got it now to where the buses don't even turn right to go down to Suburban Acres and heading north down. So now they go around the school and come out the back way where they do parent pickup. So we moved that because they were nervous about making the right-hand turn with the traffic coming both ways. So we changed that. So the gate right beside Harrison gets opened up, buses go through and they close the gate. It's come a long way since the accident and stuff.
Okay. So the biggest thing is safety, and we'll take a look at that as we're going along here and look into different options as far as manufactured stuff out there. Is that what everybody is saying?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on then. Police Department annual reports. Chief Whitaker couldn't make it here today, so we'll hold him off for another month, or 2 months.
Hopefully we'll
2
get that
months.
out before the next year.
Okay. So he'll report 2 years at a time?
Yes.
All right, new business. Terry Sweeney, Mr. Sweeney, we would want to introduce you for one thing to the Traffic Commission. If you'd like to step up here and just tell us what your duties may be.
Yeah, Terry Sweeney, Downtown Development Director for Main Street, Warsaw, and started in May, and we've been busy working on different things, trying to improve downtown. We just launched our 2030 Downtown Strategic Plan last Thursday. Pretty well attended public event, over 100 people came, and kind of getting excited about downtown, and so working for, now moving forward, working to implement that plan.
And one of your details is downtown parking.
Yes, yeah, we,
Fix it, Terry.
yes. So,
You're just gonna run a valet service, right?
right, yes. So I work with Justin on that and trying to listen to what people have to say about some of their challenges and bring that forward and coordinate. And what's good about the plan we just released is it brought forward a number of the parking recommendations that were contained in the Hyatt Palma plan that covered parking. There was a parking consultant with that, and with the Hunden study. So we're bringing those forward. I know Justin's working on some things, and I'll have some stuff to announce soon on changes to parking improvements.
Very good.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything for Terry?
Just, while we're on parking, I will just say, I know it's a big challenge, and it seems like lately I've been receiving more and more people coming to me because, people are parked on the street for days at a time and not moving their vehicles, so it's gotten to be a real issue.
I think what the city's working on is a way to have more consistent enforcement using technology and things, and that'll help create the turns that you need and begin to push those long-term parkers onto off-street parking lots. And so hopefully when that gets a chance to be implemented, that'll help address some of that.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
and there's you're going to be changing parking fines and fees that will create a deterrence. And so those two things combined will.
I think that's important, maybe raising the fees.
And definitely keep those comments, Cindy, because the council will probably have an opportunity really soon to act on some of that. So we'll get some stuff in front of you, and then you'll be able to make those decisions.
So Cindy, yesterday we had a complaint of not writing enough tickets. The same day, we had a complaint to Dana Wall, who's downtown walking, that we were writing too many tickets. And that he or she, I can't remember, wasn't happy with her $10 ticket.
I mean, I see a lot of them being written like in the city hall parking lot and the municipal parking lot, but not so many on the street. It's where, I think I'm seeing more.
Anybody else have anything for Terry?
Thanks, Terry.
Mr. Sweeney, thank you for coming here at our request. All right, we'll move on to neighborhood issues, North Union Street. Justin, did you have something there?
Is that you? Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, Dustin?
Yes, we had a resident complaint on issues that was affecting refuse collection on North Union Street. One of the biggest problems was residents parking in front of trash cans on trash day, which is hindering the ability to get to the trash can to make sure they're serviced properly, and also to be able to put the cans back away when they're pulled in into certain areas. So, and I'm not sure if he's here today or not on the resident, but was wanting to come in. But again, we'd just like to encourage our residents that, reminder, the trucks need space in order to service the trash can. The one-arm, can reaching out, we do not want to run into any guy's car or take a chance on that either. So, given that at least 4 or 5 feet of space, to stay clear of that, and definitely, not parking right in front of the trash can is not going to help. So.
All right. Any other issues as far as neighborhood issues?
No, and I think that was on the particular area was getting pretty bad. Again, every spring, the Public Works Department, we put out a packet that we stick on every trash can. We'll do that again this spring that lets you know the recycling schedule as well as any holiday schedule, and just kind of some highlights of the ordinances and what you can do, cannot do, just as a fresh reminder. So we'll just add this to it, but again, just at a public meeting, would like to kind of just poke the bear a little bit on that, on give us room to get the job done, and we'll all get along just great.
One thing I'd like to tag that with too, and I don't know if it can be added to the thing that Dustin's going to send out, but blocking sidewalks is also a huge issue if somebody has ADA access issues. So I know in every situation it's a little different, that we have all different kinds of scenarios around town, but we just want to be cognizant of our friends who may have access issues that or in a wheelchair that need to get down that sidewalk. If there's 10 trash cans blocking their way, they can't do that. So everybody's got to kind of take it upon themselves to be considerate of others. So
Also, newspaper delivery. Got to keep that open. All right. Let's move on to Ride Walk presentation. Mr. Helfrich, you'd like to address the board here, and Mr. Callahan?
Thank you. I'm Fred Helfrich, representing the Ride Walk Committee. We're here today to talk to you a little bit about project for downtown Warsaw, completing connection across town for a safe connection for cyclists. In your materials that you've got there, you'll see some, I guess I'm pulling it up, whatever. So essentially our objective is to ultimately get this before city council and to secure an agreement on the council's behalf to allow the city engineer and planner to apply for a Safe Streets for All grant. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And that would fund a temporary demonstration project for a multimodal cycle trail through downtown Warsaw. And obviously the objective here is safety. People are not comfortable riding their bikes with traffic in downtown Warsaw, and they're not permitted to ride their bikes on the sidewalk, so it's sort of a conundrum. So there's already significant infrastructure in place to the west of Columbia Street, to the east of Hickory Street, and we think that we can take advantage of those opportunities to connect all the way through downtown. So I'm going to turn it over to Nate to talk in more detail about this. Oh, and by the way, I just appreciated the opportunity to meet with some of you prior to the meeting to go through this. So if you've got questions, if you haven't seen it before and you have questions, happy to delve into the detail on this.
So thanks, Fred. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Nate Callithan, and I just want to run through this pretty quickly. So the grant that we identified for this project is called Safe Streets for All, and without this grant, we wouldn't be bringing this to your attention today. So as all of you know, a multimodal trail through downtown has been studied for the better part of 3 decades now. I think it's older than I am at this point, but we know that there's a need. The need's been established pretty sufficiently through all of the past studies that are listed there and more. And so we wanted to take an opportunity to figure out if there were any short-term solutions to this problem while the planning and engineering departments go through a more long-term solution that will hopefully come in the next 5 or 6 years. And through this research, we stumbled upon a federal grant through the U.S. Department of Transportation called Safe Streets for All. Safe Streets for All is a part of the infrastructure law that was passed a couple years ago. It opened up about $5 billion worth of funding for municipalities to use to fund what are called demonstration activities in order to allow a pedestrian or someone on a bicycle or someone in a wheelchair to improve the safety of them using a street, crossing the street, going alongside a street. in order to reduce traffic deaths. And so through this program, it's an 80-20 match. Thankfully, a local foundation has already pledged to the 20% match. So regardless of the solution we come up with, this will come at no cost to the city. Currently, right now, we are working with the city planner, the city engineer. We're working with the local foundations. We've gone through Main Street Warsaw with Terry, the Chamber of Commerce and Rob Parker, the County Tourism Board and Bureau. We've gone through the County Parks Board to try to figure out what the best solution is going to be. All that we're asking for you today is to give your recommendation to the City Council to allow the city to pursue this grant, knowing that we're still figuring out all of the details and that we're trying to open that up to as many people as possible to get all of the input we can in that time. We're asking that now because the grant is going to open up at the end of this month. And while there isn't a deadline right now that the U.S. Department of Transportation has posted, if it's anything like the grant cycle last year, it's going to close at the end of August. So we just want to make sure that we do our due diligence now to make sure that we can apply for this grant, because next year is the last year this grant is going to be available. So with that, are there any questions?
So that the grant that you would be applying for, is that just for the temporary trail?
Correct.
And the anticipated cost of that is?
So depending on the route that we are choosing, we're estimating it's going to cost no more than $500,000. And that would include all of the engineering, all of the implementation of it, the materials, and tearing it down.
And can you refresh what is the route?
So that's what we are in discussions right now with City Council, with the city planner and engineer to determine with the general public.
Nate, just real quick, as far as the, I guess the routes and stuff, have you worked with a traffic engineer or a traffic expert on making sure that the safety requirements, everything are fully met?
Yeah, per this grant, you have to follow the same standards and requirements that the U.S. Department of Transportation use, which is the same that the city has already adopted. So if we follow the city standards, then we'll be within compliance of this grant.
Okay, and one thing I am curious about, I know it seems to be pretty much focused on going down Market Street. Now, I drove the section today, there really isn't a trail that picks up out west and comes to downtown.
There is.
There is? Well, I didn't see any markings or...
So there is some signage out there right now, and all of the materials that Ride Walk or KCV, the county Tourism Bureau and the County Parks Board has is there is an 8-foot wide sidewalk on the south side of Market Street as soon as you get to the intersection of Columbia Street, and that goes all the way until Market Street tees into Center Street, and then you have the bike lanes on either side of the street.
Okay, but not necessarily painted on, just...
Painted where?
On the street?
No, it's separated from the street currently.
Okay.
On both sides of downtown, on the east and the west.
Okay, another question then too. Knowing the amount of traffic and everything on Market Street, have you explored like maybe Jefferson or another alternative?
We pulled data from NDOT as far as traffic counts for all of the streets downtown, and Market Street actually sees a significantly less amount of traffic compared to Center Street, compared to Fort Wayne Street, and compared to Main Street. So. And part of this, too, is to increase the economic development of downtown. And we don't want bikes going around downtown. We want people to be in front of the storefronts.
I guess I just have a concern that it might actually turn motorists off from driving through the downtown area.
Yeah, and that's definitely a concern. And thankfully, that's already been addressed. So I can bring it up to you if you want. There was a study done in 2018 for this exact purpose, and it goes through the level of service on Market Street.
Mm-hmm.
So here are your signalized intersections here.
Mm-hmm.
It goes through your level of services, and they're all level service A, with the exception of this one being a B,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be at Lake Street in the afternoon. and this goes out to 2037 predicted counts.
Okay.
And then, so that's without the trail. With the trail, there's no change in the delay of vehicles or the level of service.
Okay.
So that's something that has been thought about, and we want to make sure that, I'm just going to go back to Mike's.
Okay.
And that's signalized, Nate.
Yeah.
Those are signalized numbers.
That's correct, but it even denotes there in that report that anything that is, 55 seconds or more or less for a delay of vehicle is acceptable. And right now, the highest is 13 seconds. So unless someone's going to take 40 seconds at a stop sign, and just from my own personal experience too, Center Street, or there's already a stop sign at Columbia Street and Market Street, and there isn't a delay, and there's the same number of vehicles that are traveling through that intersection as would travel through any of the others along Market Street.
So we don't have anything more current, though, than the 2018.
But it goes out to 2037 as far as the data is pulling.
Okay.
And Nate, I've just got a couple more questions, and I know the answer to most of these, but I'm just asking so the public and give you a chance to speak on it. But what kind of timeline? I know you're talking a temporary, two-part question, I guess. I know you're talking a temporary, trial here. What is your timeline for that temporary trial? And then also to follow up, I know, for future city projects and stuff with Market Street in the long term, like how would this incorporate, or has that been thought about as well?
So the general intention of this whole grant is to further advance the knowledge that a community is trying to gather when it comes to determining long-term solutions to problems when it comes to pedestrian, bike, and safety for people who are disabled. So the grant defines that once you receive the funding, you need to complete your trial within 5 years. Now, there's no specified time period you need to have that trial for, and you're allowed to adjust as needed if problems arise and adjustments need to be made. The only requirements for the grant is that you report what it was before and what it was after, and why you're changing what's happening after. So as long as we update any of our numerous plans, whether it's the Ride Walk Master Plan, if it's the Critical Corridor Connection Plan, if it's the Downtown 2030 Launch Plan, any of those, if we just update and say, we did this trial, this is what we found out, these are our next steps that we want to achieve moving forward, then we fulfill the requirements of the grant.
Do you know if there are any stipulations? Let's say funding did come available for the version of it that would be more permanent. Are there any stipulations that we have to leave this in place for 5 years?
No.
In the grant?
So there is no time limit as far as how long you need to leave it in for.
Then with the changes to the actual traffic flow, kind of the MOT through downtown, with the other downtown events and the current parking issues and stuff that we have now, I know it's not necessarily going to impact the amount of parking spaces, but just as many events that are going on downtown monthly, any concern to that restricted traffic flow on being a factor?
I think it will improve it because people have the option to ride downtown safely on a bike, especially with most of these events occurring in the summer during our nicer weather months. So I think from that point of view, it will improve it. As far as just traffic flow through downtown, I mean, again, we have data that backs up that this really shouldn't be a concern. It's not going to impact the level of service or really delay that we're aware of.
I mean, my level of service isn't, I guess, my concern, but we're just talking how we opened our meeting with the concerns of out by a school and people not,
right.
disregarding a stop sign in a school zone. When you're already bottled up, with downtown events and the high traffic volumes, and whether or not people are going to stop at these, stop signs, and if the safety level for, cyclists is going to be there. Just throwing it out there. I don't know. I mean,
that's part of this whole project that we're doing is we're trying to find those answers. What I will say is if everyone has to stop at the blocks that there currently are lights, if we're going to go down Market Street, that should slow traffic down already significantly compared to a road like Husky Trail that has no inhibitants on a vehicle traveling currently right now, other than just the crosswalk if someone is in it.
Like, I guess I'm in a position where I see people blow through that stoplight there at Buffalo and Market Street pretty regularly.
Yeah, I see it too.
I do have a concern about that if you've got a cyclist, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we've been very clear with anyone who's a member of KCV, Ride Walk, we're putting out information. We want to make sure, and we'll have signage, which is also included in our grant proposal, that it is very clear that if you are cycling, you need to stop at the stop sign. You're not excluded from that because you're not a car. Because safety is the top priority here.
Well, I just see people going through on the solid red, so.
Yeah, I think because that's a light, I know whenever you look at stop signs, it's a lot less likely people just blow through it because they know every single time they have to stop, versus a light where they're just cruising at a certain speed and they want to maintain that speed.
Are you referring to cars going through or bicycles?
Cars,
Cars.
yeah, and that would be my concern about safety for people cycling, yeah.
I live off of Center Street and I see there at Bronson and Scott Street, countdown timers.
Yeah.
They have on the pedestrian signs. That's the signal that when you get to 3 seconds, that's a
Yeah.
signal to jam down the accelerator and go through on the red. So.
One other question I had too, I know a couple of years ago, and I don't remember exactly the time frame, you did kind of a test run there on a small section of Market Street. We never really did get any results from that.
So we did get some results. MACOG helped us out with getting a traffic count for cyclists, and we saw about 100% increase in number of cyclists using Market Street when that installation was there. We're trying to be more ahead of it this time around by coming to the Traffic Commission ahead of time, coming to the council ahead of time, working more with the downtown businesses, the Chamber of Commerce, city planner and city engineer. We want to make sure that we're doing this correctly. And so we're just asking for this recommendation to give us the time to do it correctly.
I want to say I love the vision, and to the board and potentially to the council members, I know safety is our obvious number one focus, but I do think a lot of what we struggle with in downtown Warsaw is a little bit of a mentality battle, where we're really not a walking, biking friendly environment. So therefore, our people don't act as if they need to respect that environment. And it may be a little bit of a chicken or the egg kind of situation, and I understand the concern. We put in a bike trail and then all of a sudden accidents are going to increase. Right. It is possible. It certainly is possible, right? You add more people to a population, crime's going to go up. That's what happens. But then it becomes a management situation. And I think eventually, if you do start to change that mindset, like I used to live just on the other side of Fort Wayne Street, just on the other side of Subway there. And I own a restaurant in downtown Warsaw. And so I lived 3.5 minutes away from my place of business, and I would not bike to work. Literally, it would take me less time to bike to work than it would for me to start my car, drive across town, go to work. But I wouldn't bike because it's that unfriendly to bike. So I think that what you're proposing is beautiful. There are a lot of concerns that we have to take into account, but I do think that there could be a potential resolution from a mental switch in Warsaw if we started talking as if we were more of a bike and walking friendly community.
I appreciate that. I was thinking as you were talking, I want to be clear that what our ultimate objective here with this plan, regardless of the route that we end up using for it, is to separate the bicyclists from the automobiles. And so be that with parking buffer or some sort of a concrete
Barrier.
or something like that. Because right now, as I said earlier, you're required to ride on this street if you go through downtown Warsaw on a bicycle. You
And I would also just like to bring up very quickly that there's a large portion of our population who cannot legally drive. Either they're too young to drive because they're under the age of 16. There's a whole subset of population here. We all have immigrants here in Warsaw, and I know my wife is one of them, and she has lived all over the world, and this is the very first place she ever had to learn how to drive because there's no safe place or no safe way for her to get around town without being able to drive. And so that's a huge barrier for people to use and access our community and really be a part of it. And so this is good for, I truly believe that this is good for drivers, this is good for cyclists, this is good for the whole community, for anyone who may or may not even use this path.
So will the trial run actually take away the left-hand turn lanes?
If it was to go down Market Street, most likely. Again, we're not set on the path right now, but that study that you have there kind of shows what would happen if we did take out the left turn lane on Market Street, which shows no impact to someone's ability to make a left-hand turn movement on Market Street.
Except if you get stuck behind that person waiting to make a left.
Well, I think even with that study, it is saying that even with a significant increase in traffic and volume on Market Street, there's no delay in someone compared to what it is right now.
Dave, before you get to the, the point of having or asking the traffic commission for a recommendation to council, will we have the final plan of what your route is, how it's going to be delineated and everything?
We'll do that before anything actually happens, whenever we go to officially apply for the grant. But we just need the approval of council to pursue the grant.
Okay. So technically, you could go get the grant or apply for the grant, and then council could say, we don't like the proposal.
Correct.
And then where would that put you? Would you have to go back to the grant?
Ideally, what we would do is we're seeking approval to apply for the grant. Through that application process, we're going to sit down with all the stakeholders, go through all of the old plans. We're going to sit down with council. We're going to sit down with Chamber of Commerce and businesses and figure out engineers and figure out what the actual details of that looks like. And then we'll present the options to you guys again. We'll present it to the council. And then only then will, and this, we could go into the grant and it becomes a huge hassle as far as requirements. It doesn't appear there's any requirements other than here's what we did before, here's what we're going to do now, and then you update a plan of which we have numerous to choose from. But if that for some reason changes and it becomes a burden on the city, then we can go back and not apply for it.
In simple terms, right now, you're going to ask city council to just give you approval to go to the grant, ask for the grant.
Correct.
Not
for the final
proposal.
plan.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And we're only doing this because it's going to be at no cost to the city. So regardless of whatever the plan ends up being.
Cool. Thank you.
What's your background?
So my professional background is I'm an engineer at Zimmer Biomet. I design knee replacements and orthopedic replacements for cancer patients. But I've worked on the Ride Walk Committee for the past 3 years now. I'm a board member of KCV. Fred and I work on this advocacy stuff for the whole county. I work alongside Justin a lot. I work alongside Aaron a lot and Jackson. And we are improving the safety of cyclists throughout the whole county is the intention. We teach people how to ride a bike. We have the Tracy's Trailer program that goes through all of the elementary schools, I think except for one currently in the Warsaw School District. And I forget the exact number off the top of my head, but I want to say it's in the neck of the woods of 10,000 students that we've taught how to ride a bike safely. So that's my background.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Nothing has to be officially
Correct.
designed or anything for the application process of the grant.
Correct.
I do have a question. So you're working with an engineer for this, correct?
Aaron, yeah.
Besides Aaron, there was somebody.
So JPR is working with them on so Aaron and the planning department on the final multimodal trail. And so the purpose of pursuing this grant is to collect data and information for their benefit to come up with a more finalized plan whenever that gets presented.
Okay, so who's Jones, Petrie, and Ravinsky?
That's JPR, that's the engineering firm doing the current.
So the city does have an engineer outside of the city working for this?
Correct.
I may provide a little clarification that helps that. The city has been evaluating a project that's an off-street cycle track, and that's what's been preliminarily engineered. And it's a project we're pretty comfortable with the scope, but it's a very costly project. This exact scenario, should it land on Market Street, still needs engineering.
Yes.
And I've challenged and I've been real clear with them, their proposal that makes some assumptions of taking the traffic signals to all-way stops, still needs vetted and designed, and it may not be the right solution in the end. And the challenge I think that creates right now with where they're at, it is a tough thing, like as Jason said, chicken and egg. A lot of times when you're going for a grant, you have a decent enough scope of work you're comfortable with, but you still haven't engineered it yet. You're going to engineer it with that money. This unique concern of what happens with traffic signals, if it's on Market Street, we have to be ready for what those results, when it's engineered, say, and that comes to how much cost to get involved in the grant. And if you don't get enough cost into the engineering says you need to do this and this and keep your traffic signals, then that's then another hurdle that has to be overcome, I suppose. So I've shared from our standpoint, my personal standpoint, because I don't have the time to dedicate to dig in and evaluate the engineering on this, is that's an unknown. That how that unknown is navigated and overcome, I don't know. That's kind of back in their court, and I think where they're still trying to maybe figure out the best approach to that. And should there be costs there in case it needs the traffic signals? And what I say by that is, the bikeway, maybe it needs its own traffic signal features added to our existing traffic signal and things. And then you start entering some of the realm of why the big project we want to do is not currently able to go forward because it's too costly right now for our resources. So in a nutshell, that's a little elaboration on the engineering side of it and where it's still work to be done there, and the timing of when that work gets done and how that work gets done is kind of difficult to really see and be exactly fully comfortable with.
Last question. So MACOG numbers are roughly, I think it's 3,800 cars on Market Street. Does that sound right, Justin?
It's about 3,000, yeah.
Per day.
How many, and it doesn't include the vehicles going north and south in that area, how many bikes went through when we had that trial run in 22?
About 300 a day.
300 a day?
It's a bigger number than
How
I
did we get that? How did we get that data?
So,
So I have it. MACOG
I mean,
can
how is
provide
it obtained?
Oh, so the same way that it's obtained for car traffic, where you have the two strips on the road, and whenever a car goes over it, it ticks one, like a tally mark. The same thing was happening on,
And that was 300 a day, right here in front of the post office where it was
yes, yes.
Was somebody doing circles?
He only turns left.
If you guys aren't familiar, Strava heat maps are really helpful too when looking at routes through the city. The numbers are something that I've kind of, anyone I've talked to about the project, I've kind of pushed back on looking at the numbers and say, what are those numbers telling us? They're telling us how many people ride through in its current condition, but there's no magical number if 50 cyclists ride through this a day that it's worth it or not worth it. The vision of this trail is it's a spine to connect the east side and the west side, about 7-8 miles of trails, more if you count the mountain bike trails in Winona Lake. We won't know the usage until the trail's complete, so you can't say how many cars are driving down this unbuilt road. It's something that doesn't really help us that much at this point, from my perspective.
Yeah, I know whenever because I ride my bike through downtown and I ride on the street, but almost every single time I'm downtown, I see someone riding a bike, but on a sidewalk. And I think it's very clear that they just don't feel safe. And so I suspect that when this trail is completed, that there will be a significant increase in the number of users that would use it. And I think that's the best example I can give is during the Fat and Skinny Tire Fest, we have the mass ride between the village and downtown Warsaw, and you have 700 to 800 people for the past couple years that have consistently turned out for that. So I think there is a real desire for this to happen within our community.
So when they get past Little Crow, though, very likely they're gonna just go to the street. They're not gonna use that wide bicycle.
No, I see people using the side path on the south. You're talking about going east?
Yes,
Yeah.
going east. I rarely ever see anybody on that one.
I would say I see it all the time, and MACOG also has data on that we can pull.
Well, we just need to encourage that, because I live on Market Street, and they're on the road rather than on
Yeah.
the sidewalk, unless they have a 2-year-old on,
Yeah.
on their training bikes or something.
What I will say is that state law does allow cyclists to use the street regardless of if there's a bike lane on that street or not. It's all about a level of comfort.
Yeah, I just hear a lot of what I consider serious cyclists say they're not gonna ride on that. They're
Yeah.
gonna go to the streets, so.
It's probably another development question, but with crossing State Road 15, I know that the project obviously hasn't been entered, but, I know NDOT sometimes is pretty stickler on what they will allow and what they won't allow. Has that been researched at all?
Oh, yes, a little bit, and we're setting up a meeting with NDOT to talk about that more specifically. But generally speaking, the consensus is a cyclist will have to hit the bank button on the sidewalk and get off their bike and walk across 15 on their bike, not put their bike beside them, to safely cross the street and do so legally until they can get to the cycle track or the multimodal trail that will go through downtown.
Sir?
Tom Wagaman with KCV. You mentioned the multimodal path on Market Street not being used. As a cyclist, I can assure you, as we talked earlier about trash cans, that is the favorite place for residents to place their trash cans on that multimodal path, along with parking across it on the weekends when they have more people there. So it's not the ideal path for a cyclist to begin with, but it's often blocked and creating dangerous conditions. So I can assure you as a cyclist, we don't want to interact with cars. And riding through downtown forces us to interact with drivers who don't know how to deal with bicycles in town. So I have been squeezed off the road at stop signs. I have been passed at stop signs where the car will come clear into the opposite lane and then realize we're at stop sign and traffic coming at them is going, what do we do? So we would love as cyclists to not have to interact with traffic, and this is one of the paths forward to do that. Jason, you mentioned, I don't ride downtown, I ride to the village. It's easy, it's safe. So.
And this is just me speaking to the board more so, there was a reference made of like professional cyclists, which I would assume most of the representatives from KCV would probably consider themselves to be that. I am not. I'm a 42-year-old, 280-pound individual who enjoys riding a bike.
You need to ride your bike.
Yeah, tell me about it. There will be differences between, somebody that's wearing clip-ins and has the whole getup, but also as an entertainment industry individual of like a restaurant, I promise you, we would have customers. If this town was more bike friendly, our restaurants and eateries and breweries in downtown would have a lot more visitors on a bike. And, we all sit up here every month and talk about how much parking stinks in this town. You can get an awful lot of bikes in a singular parking spot. So I think there's a huge benefit to this.
We are very fond of food and beverage,
Sir, you made the comment that you ride down to the village because it's safe there instead of downtown. With the proposed plan, you feel that that is, in your opinion, that it makes it safe?
It's a start. It delineates the cars from the bikes. It allows the cars to pass cyclists without going into the other lane or forcing the cyclist, into an uncomfortable situation. So it is a start. We would prefer more of a buffer, a physical barrier, but having a lane marked for bikes, it helps.
It's a start.
It's a start.
And just to let you guys know that the average daily trips on the road entering Winona Lake exceed that of Market Street by about 400 or 500. So that does make it feel a lot safer if there is an area for you to cycle.
So how far does the bike lane come from Winona to Warsaw on Winona Avenue?
So coming from, you can count it two ways, either all the way down to Roy Street on the far side of the Greenway or the Christ Covenant Church in Winona Lake. From that, it goes all the way to Hickory Street, which is the railroad tracks on Detroit Street, in one continuous Greenway separated path. And that segment there is probably 4 or 5 miles. And then it picks up again on the other side of downtown on Market Street, at this intersection of Columbia Street where the post office is. And then we'll jump on the center street with the separated bike lanes, and that goes out all the way to the Chinworth Bridge, which is currently or about to be expanded another mile. So altogether, it's about 9 miles of continuous Greenway minus less than a half mile through downtown. And I would also like to add that KCV is currently building a bike park that is larger than any bike park within 200 miles of here, starting next year. And so to have the opportunity for a cyclist to go from that bike park on a separated path without ever having to interact with a vehicle next to them from there to downtown would be a big boon for local businesses.
Nate, one more thing on it, just opinion here, more so, but so with that, the current plan that's laid out, who would you say it is most likely geared towards? Guys that are expert bikers like you, or are you trying to get it towards a family?
I can answer that.
Sure, yeah.
So it's not geared for me. I'm old, but I still ride a road bike, and I love riding on the street as opposed to, yesterday I rode out East Market Street because I needed to go out to the village. And frankly, that is not a comfortable place to ride a road bike because at every intersection you're swishing off. Anyway, so but who it's for are my kids, my grandkids. My son comes to town from Napanee, brings his 3 daughters, 10, 8, and 6. Somehow they managed to cram 4 bicycles and a trailer bike into their combo when they get down here, and they ride to Winona Lake, or they ride here or there, but they ride off street. Same with my daughter from Noblesville when they come to visit. They've got 2 little kids. They put them in seats on the back of the bikes, and they take off, and they like to be out of traffic.
Yeah, and I guess the point of my comment is, this going for a safe streets for all. I just wanted to make sure, because I'm going to get a lot of calls on this as, the public works, superintendent. And I'm not trying to bash on what you have going on by any means whatsoever. I'm fully supportive that I think it'll bring a lot of people downtown, that there'll be a lot of different advancements as well. But, with that current buffer system of not having a real separation, whereas the long-term plan does, are you running the risk of, would you feel comfortable with your young, grandchild or whatever being, 10 years younger on a 2-foot buffer with the cars on that current design as a temporary or not? I don't.
So if this were to go down Market Street, the intent would be to push so we would remove the left turn lane.
Sure.
You would push the eastbound car lane, north 1 lane, and then also push the parking lane for the eastbound traffic up 1 lane. So not only do you have the 2-foot buffer, which is more to prevent car dooring, of someone opening a door and hitting someone on accident, you have the parked cars there, or even if there isn't a parked car, 10 feet of space between you, at minimum, between you as a cyclist and any vehicles that are moving.
A question about the funding or the grant. Say you get $500,000, and it takes $100,000 to do engineering, just big round figures here. And it's decided that we can't do it. Say we can't do it at all. What happens with that other 400,000? I mean, are we made to use that for something?
No.
Do we have to go forward with
No.
something?
So the way the grant is set up is that it's not your traditional like match money, it's percent of cost. And so if we only use $100,000 of it doing engineering and decide this isn't going to work, then the local foundation will cover $20,000, the grant will cover $80,000, and it'll just end there. And so we're not forced to use the rest of the money for anything with this.
And we're not forced to do something. in
Correct.
order to use it.
And a lot of that language would be in the grant agreement that would go before Board of Works, so we would have a chance to see all that. If they were awarded, the contract would come and we'd have time to look at it and see if there were any caveats like that.
And the nice thing is that South Bend already applied for this grant for some similar things last year. And so MACOG can help us out with the grant application process to make sure that's all squared away and can answer any questions based on the experience of the city of South Bend.
And my second question, I think this is more to the board. Captain Beam, have you seen any of the figures or any of the study that they
8
have?
years ago. Nothing recent.
Okay, so we would have to, anybody else, I mean, Dustin or, and I'm pointing to the guys who live
Yeah.
and breathe this type of stuff to help the rest of us with it.
I know,
Have you seen it? Have you been able to evaluate it?
No.
And would it be considered under your opinions to be up to date enough that we could make a decision on it, or would that have to be part of the next engineering study, or, how would that all work?
Well, I mean, I have not seen all the information, but I think before it went to the traffic commission made a final recommendation, or it went to council for a question, obviously the engineering would be complete and the final plan would be drawn up to would be my recommendation. But as far as, I don't think that's what Nate and the Ride Walk Committee are here asking currently. They're currently just asking permission to go the next step with, with seeking the grant, which council and the traffic commission and then council would ultimately have a say after they've seen the final plan.
So a lot of this stuff I'm questioning would get, unknown at this point, would be
Down the road.
satisfied with an engineering study and.
Because are you set just on Market Street?
No.
Okay. So what that would be presented though, as far as options?
So yeah, we're going to go through this process and then we'll present the options to the Traffic Safety Commission, to Common Council. I think it's just Market Street's being discussed because that's what every plan, the dozen that are listed on there, has cited as the preferred route.
A couple comments that might help as I think about that, Jack, where there's going to be more opportunities for the city to make sure this is something the city wants. Hopefully, say this all moves forward and they get the grant, they're going to, whichever engineers they end up working with, and since the city's not spending the money, but the city's a sponsor, we're going to have some say-so in that. But I would feel we'll partner with them. But whoever does that engineering, whatever they produce, would route through all of our departments for input, and absolutely the Board of Works before it would go out to bid. where council gets involved, I can't speak on that. They're involved in a lot of the positions, but what gets engineered and goes out, maybe per mayor's advice, we'll go to the council whether we should, or whether we have to or don't have to, just because it might be a good idea to. But absolutely, before this would ever go to bid and get a contractor to go out and install, there's all that approval that has to happen there for sure.
Well, thank everyone for their questions. Nate, you've done a great job in presenting this. Do we want to make a recommendation to the council that they go
Yeah.
ahead with this?
Yeah, considering everything, I do share a lot of Aaron's comments earlier with the unknowns and the engineering, and a lot of question marks as far as what the lights do. There's question marks about the maintenance of the trail and how, if the bollards get knocked down, how we're getting those back up. So, but I do think at this point, we have sufficient information to make a recommendation to council to approve the application of the grant, and I think we can kind of iron out some of these question marks that we do have at this point in the next couple processes and the next couple opportunities we have to review what they're proposing and get it refined. So I just make that motion that we give a favorable recommendation to City Council for the application of the grant.
I will second that statement.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? One nay, that'd be Cindy. Okay. All right. Thank you, Nate, and Fred, for your interest and presentation. Just curious, we have other people here. Are they with the Ride Walk Committee or
I don't think
interested?
any of them are with Ride Walk specifically, but they might want to speak to. Yeah, Nick was here, and he's a part of Ride Walk.
Okay.
I'm just with the KCB club and a bike rider. Nate Loeffler, they expressed the same concerns or, same support I have with my bicycling as I do. I use both the road and the greenway still, and I ride uptown, especially in the wintertime, I ride uptown a lot for exercise, and I use the greenway part because it's, usually fairly clear of snow and I'm able to ride my mountain bike on the greenway.
Very good. Appreciate all of you coming.
You wanted to speak in the back?
Yeah, if everybody could make sure you sign in, we appreciate that. Yeah, your name and please.
Yeah, so I'm Lisa Harmon from Live Well Kosciuszko, and so I just wanted to say that we are very supportive of this project. We think it helps in building a culture of health in Kosciuszko County, and we think that that positively impacts economic development, workforce development, and quality of place. We have a physical well-being committee that works on making the healthy choice the easy choice, and this is one of the things that we think could help that. And then we have a community well-being committee that works on if everyone in Kosciuszko County felt safe and secure, what would that look like? And we think this also contributes to that. And this is just a story from when I was a small child, lived over on Pike Street, and I remember riding my bicycle on the sidewalk to the library to get library books and getting stopped by a police officer because I was riding on the sidewalk, and that was like my first interaction that I'd ever had with a police officer. So the other thing that I appreciate is the fact that they do the education in the community for kids and people who are using the trails. And I think education continues to be part of what we need to do to make sure that community members do understand the rules of bike riding and things like that in the community. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
I don't believe that was me that stopped you. Was that Brad or?
Not me.
Yeah, that wasn't
Could have been me.
It could have been Lance.
Could have been.
I just make sure.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. We appreciate it.
I will just follow up real quick and say, Nate, Fred, I appreciate everything you guys are doing as far as coming out. I know standing up here and answering these questions and going through all this, I've been on the other side of that. It's not always as easy to stand there and present that. So, but what you're trying to do to accommodate and promote a culture and a movement in the community is definitely a good thing, and in support, as long as all the research and stuff is done and move forward to make sure we're in agreement with something the city can get behind as well. But thank you again for coming in.
Very nice. All right.
Good job.
Committee of Planning updates. Anything? Not that you want to talk about now?
I don't have a list in the street department yet.
Oh, I did want to thank the street department. They got a sign up out by Airport Road that was causing some issues, so they got that up, and I appreciate that. There were some issues that were happening out there, so yeah, thank you.
Yep. Other matters may come before the board. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Shauna Perkins. My husband and I have a restaurant down the road, and I know this is like beating a dead horse. The parking downtown is ridiculous. Like, it's affecting not only my business, but others as well. Part of the problem is there's not enough enforcement. I have 2 vehicles sitting in front of our business right now that have been there for 2 days. The 3 days before that, it was parked about 4 spots down on the other side in front of somebody else's business. I know you said you've gotten complaints about too many tickets. I cannot possibly imagine it being from someone downtown. I can't tell you when the last time was I saw him physically walk around and mark for 2-hour parking. I understand he's been ill. But is there anything in place for while he's ill and while he's out?
So we have added, our code enforcement is doing parking control on top of his job as well, and that's what we have to offer. We
Okay.
can't have a backup parking control. Our budget won't allow for it, and he's coming back soon.
Okay, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just, there are people parking in spots that aren't even parking spots. Like, I took a picture yesterday and sent one to the police department. And it's not just it's just today. It's every day. It's something. I mean, and it's, like I said, there's cars that have been sitting there for days.
So the city and Terry's gonna fix our parking downtown, so.
In 2030.
The city.
Got that halo going?
I was like,
Yes.
in 2030, Terry, what's your plan for the next 5 years?
So I want to start. So, what business do you have, or
The
what's
diner.
that? Okay. Yeah, we do have code enforcement that's working on parking. We can definitely have them pay special attention to that area.
And
if
it's not even just us.
But I do want to let you know that I have a meeting with the mayor tomorrow morning to discuss our contract that we have put together and some ordinance rewrites for parking downtown. So that meeting's happening tomorrow, and then we're going to start discussing the proposal with the city council over the next few weeks, and then get something in front of them to make a vote on for the ordinance updates and the contract with a new parking enforcement company that will offer the equipment. We'll still use our local staff to enforce the parking, but it will streamline the process. So there'll be opportunities for you as a member of the downtown to sit in those council meetings and say, we want the fines to be $50 every time somebody, whatever that ends up being.
Yeah.
But you guys will be able to speak up in those council meetings, and the council will be able to take action on those ordinance updates. So it's in the works. We're getting closer to taking that into the council meetings. We're just lining up the rest of the paperwork we have to do to get that moving. So.
Well, and like I said, I mean, I don't want to be that person. Like, I really don't. I know there is no easy fix. I know there's not. Like, I've lived in this area my entire life. There is no easy fix. But I think people are taking advantage of the fact they know he's not going to mark tires. He's not going to give tickets. They know it.
This meeting that you're having, the public is invited, or is that something?
No, that's between,
Just the committee?
right now, that's with me and the mayor to go over the proposed ordinance updates that we want to take to the council. So any ordinance changes will need to go to the council, and then the contract with our consultant will go to the Board of Works meeting for approval, once we kind of iron out what we're going to ask the council to approve or review and approve. So it's just, we're getting closer to that point, and you're not the only one, so believe
And I
me.
know I'm not, and like I said, I don't want to be that person, but it's affecting our business. Like which, if we don't have as much business, we don't pay as much in sales tax, we don't pay as much, we may have problems paying our property tax. I mean, it's a trickle effect.
And we're doing all this with that in mind. And the new system will be able to scan the plates and quickly go through the downtown several times.
Yeah.
In the time it currently takes us to do that. So it's going to be a big improvement on our ability to enforce. Even on days like today, we might not be able to chalk tires, but we would be able to use the systems that we're looking at now.
Yeah.
On those days. So.
So we're looking at newer technologies and.
Oh, yeah, yep. So, and it's stuff that's been implemented in larger cities successfully over and over again, and smaller cities like ours.
Yeah.
So again, we're not there yet, but give us a few more months, and hopefully we'll get some stuff out there. We're trying to get this as quickly as we can. We just want to make sure we're thorough in every aspect of the contracts and everything we're getting into with this change.
So, and I do have one more thing, and it's, the new signs are pretty. The handicap signs, nobody can see them. People I really think we notice a lot of people parking in the handicap spots, and I'm assuming it's probably not just the two that I can see they don't have any kind of handicap tags. That blue on the street is hard to see, especially if the roads are wet. That little sign up there, they don't see it. And I genuinely believe part of it, it's accidental. It's not intentional. It's just they don't see it. And I don't know if it's something different with the new sign. I don't know if they're smaller signs. I don't know what it is.
No, the signs shouldn't be any smaller. They'll be in accordance with the MUTCD. The pavement markings may be, depending on where it's at, maybe a year plus old. I know here first thing in the spring, as soon as the weather turns where it gets nice and the road temperature gets up high enough, we'll be repainting all those. We'll be repainting the curbs and stuff as we do every year. So hopefully that'll help, but we'll definitely look into the signage and see if there's anything else we can do.
And maybe I'm just wishful thinking. People aren't doing it intentionally, but
Sure.
I really don't think most of them do. And again, that goes to a safety issue. It goes to an ADA issue. It goes to a business issue.
Well, it does, and it most definitely goes into every driving school that anybody's ever been to is they're going to have, at the corners of the block are going to be handicap parking 95% of the time. So for somebody to have zero knowledge of that, I would really struggle to.
Well, and I think some of it too, maybe partly that it's at an alley. So I don't know if that has anything that people just don't think. I really don't know.
Sure.
I think if they were more obvious, you got this little handicap guy that's this big, and he's probably bigger than that, but
Okay,
instead
Shauna,
of, the massive ones there used to be.
thank you. I hate to cut you
No, you're
short
fine.
here, but we may have some more items
Nope,
here.
you're
but
fine. That was
Is that
all.
all you had?
Yep.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other matters that may come before the board?
Can I just make a quick response to that?
Okay.
Based off of enforcement. So this goes for everybody, and this is probably a bigger conversation, but when it comes to contacting law enforcement through Facebook, what people need to understand, what the public needs to understand, there's a total of 2 of us that even see those. And so that depends on whether or not my notification goes off on my work phone that shows me that. So the reason I say that, I've had messages that come in at 3 in the morning, and I'm not going to see those until I wake up. I have messages that I'll be busy with a meeting, and I won't see them for 2-3 hours, which is something that happened yesterday when you contacted us. So what I would say, just call the police department non-emergency number. Make it a call. That way somebody's going to look into it. And they're going to be pretty prompt about that too, for the most part. Granted, a parking issue is going to fall down the level of responding to an accident or a domestic or whatever the case, but it's gonna get entered in as a call, and somebody is gonna check that off. So feel free to call that.
That's why I sent it the way I did.
Yeah, no, I get that.
I wasn't expecting anybody to come right out, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, but I'm just hear that from me. Just do that. Call it, and that makes it a call. If parking's busy doing something in a different part of the city or a different part of town, maybe the district clerk can come right over there and deal with that. So feel confident just to make that non-emergency phone call, and we'll make a call of it.
I had just a couple of things that
Okay.
were brought to me, and it looks like the cut glass issue that we're kind of dealing with that, and going through the minutes and everything. And the other one was about Jake breaks, and I hopefully indicated the right thing. I've had some complaints, as have some other council members, but we are not allowed to put signage out.
Correct. Those are NDOT controlled roads, so we can't put signage out there. The Jake brake is considered a safety device, and they will not put that sign out there. So it kind of ties our hands.
There are other communities that do that, but then that's pretty much at their peril,
Correct.
because if people follow that and have an accident because of following that, that goes back on the municipality, correct?
Correct. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but
It's common sense?
yes.
Okay. Any other matters might come before the board? All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Thank you, Jason.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brad. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Thank you for sticking around a little bit longer than we usually do, and thank the public for being here.
Have you ever,
We will not have April meeting
I think